Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Occult Think Tank. My name is Greg. In this program, I am going to talk about the aspects of fear and control that are used by those in power in order to maintain their power. This is done from both the religious and the political. Where we see this in our society most right now is with the aspect of climate change. And I'm sure all of you have seen this graph that shows this hockey stick type of thing. And it looks shocking to be it's jumped that much. But in the scheme of things, that does not really tell you what the percentage in the atmosphere is. This gets a little closer because I added the carbon dioxide percentage at the top of the page, because this is also showing that hockey stick type of thing, but stretched out more over the past 50 some years. The thing is, even at 410 parts per million is still only 0.04% of the atmosphere. Let's be clear. What they climate change people are wringing their hands about and acting like the sky is falling over is a rise of 0.01%. That is what they're claiming is the end of the fucking world. That is what Al Gore had claimed would destroy life in 20 years. That is what AOC is clamoring is so deadly. But they want to do a type of shell game and act like the exhaust from cars, planes, and fossil fuels is the same as CO2. It is not. The exhaust from burning fossil fuels is carbon monoxide, CO. CO2 is carbon dioxide. We breathe in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. Cars and fossil fuels pump out, and their exhaust is carbon monoxide, CO. There is a difference between CO and CO2. CO will kill you. Carbon dioxide can, but only if it replaces most of the air in a room. The thing is, what we have going on is this is what is in our atmosphere. Our atmosphere is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen. There is about 0.96 of what is called in this graph other gases, which argon makes up the most. And down near the bottom could also be tossed in because of the amount with other gases is carbon dioxide, because the amount is so low. The thing is, it looks a lot scarier when it's put like that. But that is part of what they're doing. They're wanting to act like a rise in 0.01% is earth-shattering. Honestly, I don't think it is. And even if a rise of 0.01% of carbon dioxide is because of people, that small percentage of carbon dioxide would only aid plants' growth. It would not hurt the planet. Plants take in carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. What we have is basically a shell game that's going on with the aspect of fossil fuels. Because fossil fuels burning creates carbon monoxide. This is a big difference and something that can't be ignored. Because something else that you need to keep in mind. This is a quote from the Illuminatium. The most terrifying fear of someone with power is losing the power that makes them someone. That is a very telling statement. And it is something that we can see evident from not just the Democratic Party, but the Republican Party as well, but more so with the Democrat Party. But there's also, especially with CRT, they're also trying to maintain their power, and they don't give a damn about the harm that comes to a society. Because the idea of this aspect of white guilt and trying to make everything about race, especially demonizing white people, is no different from the segregation that happened in this country back in the 60s and so forth with black people. It was wrong back then, and it is wrong now. Just because you change the group that you're wanting to demonize does not make it right. It is just as wrong. It is just as much of a shell game as the CO and CO2 shell game is. Wanting to segregate and wanting to cause hate between races is wanting to keep us divided as a people. They're doing that so that they can maintain their power. That's what this is really all about. Don't let them play their games of wanting to divide and conquer, because that is what this is about. They're wanting to act as if climate change is such a big thing. And I'm not trying to say that we shouldn't look at what can we do to make the planet better. By all means, we should. But the aspect of CO2, we're not even close to Venus. Don't let them try. Don't let them even attempt to shove the aspect of Venus with climate change. Because the Earth in carbon dioxide, and this graph shows a 0.03% of carbon dioxide. Whereas Venus, amount in their atmosphere, 96.5%. That is the aspect of the amount of CO2 that would kill life, and even plant life, on a planet. That amount is, because when you get down to oxygen, it's a trace amount on Venus. Nitrogen is only at 3.5%. So clearly we could not breathe on Venus or Mars, because even Mars has a 95% CO2 aspect. The thing is, the idea of global warming and that CO2 will cause the planet to become a greenhouse effect, you would have to have amounts far above the 0.04% that we are at currently. I would estimate, and I'm not a scientist or anything, but I would even estimate you would have to have over 1% to start to have some aspect of greenhouse effect from CO2. But we're not even close to 1% because that, just to bring everyone up to speed on what we're talking about, 1%, it would have to jump a hell of a lot because it's at 0.04. I might be concerned if it was at even 0.25 because that would be a significant jump, even though that would only be 20, that would still be well less than half of a percent, but it would be considerably higher than what we're at currently. When you're talking a difference of 0.01%, you are talking a very minute difference. But it looks a lot scarier when you have graphs that I regard as dishonest, because it looks bad, it looks worse when you have this straight line up. But that distance is only 0.01% of the atmosphere. They're wanting to try and make a mountain out of a molehill. But I'm not saying we should ignore the aspects of going green, to use that term, because there are benefits to getting off of fossil fuels, and there are many ways we can do it, and not the least of which that I had mentioned in a video before was hemp. And one dumbass tried saying about the amount of seeds you would need, and it just made me want to slap them, because while hemp does grow from a seed, you're not dealing with a seed. An oak tree starts as a seed, but you're not, when you have the oak tree in your front yard, you're not looking at a seed. This is the stupidity that I deal with. And it is much like the shell game of CO versus CO2. Because if you want to make an issue out of CO2, let's be clear on what you're having an issue with. You're having an issue with people breathing. And that goes down a very dark rabbit hole, because it's one of, so you want to stop people from breathing, then you're wanting to kill people. It's not about CO2. Carbon monoxide would be something that I would be looking at and being more concerned about, because that can be the aspect of like smog in a city. That's more carbon monoxide not carbon dioxide. There's also the problem of, I'm all for America doing things to reduce, to use the term, the carbon footprint. But if you're talking the world, if America makes changes, but China does not, how much effect are we going to have on the planet if another major world power doesn't give fuck all about the amount of CO2 they're pumping into the atmosphere, or even CO? If only one country or only a few countries are doing it, you're not going to have the overall impact that you're thinking you're going to. Especially when what we're talking about is a rise of 0.01%. It means all the regulations and all the bullshit that would be pushed on the American people, you would not notice a difference. They would still be able to hand wring and act like the sky is falling, because even if it would drop half of what it has raised, you still wouldn't notice, because it would just be 0.035% of the atmosphere. It would be, so what? But for hundreds of thousands of years, even to say that it was a high of 0.03%, okay, so you're bitching and you're acting like the sky is falling over a rise of 0.01%. I just want people to be clear on what is being done. This is not about CO2. This is about control. That is the big issue. It is all about the amount of power that a group has. This is something we've seen it with religion, and we see it with politics. You can really see it even at a job, with the aspect of this social justice warrior, virtue signaling, and all of that. Just the same way like the Olympics is caving and basically destroying female sports because of letting what are essentially males participate in female sports just because they are gender transitioning to the opposite gender. They can't change the biological benefits that somebody that was born biologically male would have. You can't make that much of a change transitioning the exterior and how the exterior body looks. You still have the muscle structure, lung capacity, all of the physical attributes that make someone a male. Or just like transitioning, you cannot get to where you can, as a male, give birth to a child. You cannot change the interior or inner organs just because you want to identify as a different gender. It is unfair for somebody that is a biological male to compete with biological females and act as if that is some kind of fair contest. It is not. It is the same type of shell game that is being done. It's just more obvious. to us. We can see the unfair aspect very clearly. There are so many areas where the aspect of fear, control, and power factor in. And I want to make it very clear. All of this can tie back into the Illuminati bullshit that I have been covering. All of this, if you want to buy into the conspiracy of the Illuminati, I'm not totally sold on it, but there is considerable evidence just in what I have covered that if this group is real, the type of things they are advocating, hell, they say freedom is an idol of the human species. That in and of itself should be a big red flag for everyone. Any group that wants to act as if there's something wrong with freedom, that freedom is not real, that people shouldn't or should be willing to give up their freedom. No. And I think it was Benjamin Franklin that had said, if you are willing to sacrifice freedom for the illusion of security, you deserve neither freedom nor security. The truth of the matter is, freedom is not an idol. Everybody wants to be free. People of all races, all colors, all religions, the biggest thing people want is freedom. Because people want to be able to be free to make the choices that fit them and suit them. But feel free to leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. Later, people.